Alright, folks, welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only show that treats the global economy like the high-stakes, slightly ridiculous casino it truly is. Today, we're heading to Frankfurt, the glittering heart of European monetary policy. You know, the place where they decide whether your mortgage is going to cost you an arm, a leg, or your firstborn child. And let me tell you, the drama heating up inside that glass tower is juicier than a boardroom battle on Succession. The year is 2025. And the European Central Bank is about to play the world's most expensive game of musical chairs. Forget the Super Bowl, forget the Olympics. This is Eurothrones, the battle for the Iron Throne of monetary policy. Over the next 2 years, 2/3 of the ECB's top command, the 6-person executive board, is getting a complete makeover. This isn't just a leadership shuffle, it's a seismic event that will dictate the economic fate of 347 million people. So grab your popcorn, and maybe a stiff drink, because we're going to dissect this Game of Thrones, from the courtly whispers in Luxembourg to the brutal economic realities on the streets of Lisbon and Berlin. First, the basics. The Queen is leaving the castle. Christine Lagarde, the legal eagle who swapped the IMF for the ECB, is packing her bags in 2027. Her number 2, Vice President Luis de Guindos, is out even sooner. The intellectual heart of the operation, the chief economist, is also up for grabs. This isn't your typical corporate handover. This is a grand, political ballet choreographed with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. It's a delicate, toxic brew of national pride, backroom deals, and a desperate attempt to balance the unbalanceable, North versus South, big versus small, hawks versus doves, and of course, the ever-present gender scorecard. Think of it like building the perfect boy band. You need the serious one from Germany, the charming one from France, the one with a comeback story from the South, and maybe, just maybe, you can squeeze in a plucky newcomer from Eastern Europe who's just happy to be there. The problem is, every one of these band members wants to be the lead singer, and they're all singing a different tune about inflation. Let's break down the key positions and the players vying for them. This is where the real horse trading begins. First up is de Guindos' seat. The VP. It's the ultimate, always the bridesmaid role, but it's a powerful one. The Finns are fielding Olli Rehn, a man who has held more titles in Brussels than most people have had hot dinners. He's the establishment choice, the safe pair of hands. His policy stance is so middle of the road, he probably signals before changing his mind. He's the Volvo of central bankers, reliable, safe, not terribly exciting. But wait. The script demands a plot twist. Enter the southern contingent, armed with a powerful weapon, the gender card. Portugal's Clara Raposo and Greece's Cristina Papakonstantinou are in the mix. They are deputy governors, highly qualified, and check a crucial box. The cynical calculus, as whispered in the halls of power, is this: install a woman as VP, and it frees up the big prize, the presidency, for a man. Progressive? Or just politically expedient? You decide. Then there's Croatia's Boris Vujcic. He's the new money candidate, the guy who successfully steered his country into the Eurozone in 2023. He's sharp, he's got credibility, and he represents the bloc's eastward expansion. Giving an Eastern European a seat at the big table would be a massive political statement. This is the gig for the true nerds. Less pay, less glamour than the VP, but arguably more power. The chief economist is the one who whispers the magic numbers into the president's ear. They run the models, they make the forecasts, and they propose the interest rate moves. Naturally, France, having already had 2 presidents, wants this job badly. It's their way of keeping their hands firmly on the monetary steering wheel. They've got a whole stable of candidates, from former OECD chief economist Laurence Boone to the IMF's current brainiac, Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas. The message from Paris is clear: we may not get the crown, but we will be the hand of the king. Germany is lurking here too. If they sense the presidency is out of reach, they'll push for this. A German chief economist would be a powerful hawkish voice, constantly reminding everyone about the mortal sin of inflation. It would be a return to the days of Ottmar Issing, the ECB's first, legendary, and profoundly German chief economist. And now, the main event. The race to succeed Lagarde. The Dutch are making a strong play with Klaas Knot. He's a veteran, a policy heavyweight, and the outgoing chair of the Financial Stability Board. He's seen as a pragmatic hawk, tough on inflation but not a dogmatic ideologue. In a recent podcast, Lagarde herself practically anointed him, praising his intellect and stamina. In the world of central banking, that's the equivalent of a public coronation. But Germany, the economic engine of Europe, is getting restless. They've never held the presidency. It's the ultimate snub. Can you imagine the NFL being around for 25 years and the Green Bay Packers never winning a Super Bowl? It's unthinkable. Bundesbank President Joachim Nagel is their man. He's been trying to soften the Bundesbank's famously rigid mean image, but political headwinds at home might sink his chances. Then there's the dark horse, Spain's Pablo Hernández de Cos. He's a technocrat's technocrat, a brilliant economist now running the Bank for International Settlements. He was seen as the protege of the legendary Mario Whatever It Takes Draghi. But his star may have faded. And here's the kicker, the wild card, the precedent set by Lagarde herself. the ECB has shown that you don't actually need to be an economist to run the world's second most important central bank. You can be a lawyer, a politician. This opens the door for a complete outsider, someone chosen not for their grasp of the Taylor rule, but for their political connections. Terrifying? A little. Okay, so why should you care about this high-level soap opera? Because behind the jockeying for positions are deep, structural fault lines that define the European economy. This isn't just about personalities, it's a proxy war for the soul of the euro. 1. The undying north-south zombie divide. This is the original sin of the eurozone. The fiscally prudent, inflation-hating north versus the historically more indebted, growth-focused south. For years, the narrative was simple: the north bails out the profligate south. But the script has flipped. Post-pandemic, Spain's economy is growing at a respectable clip, while Germany, the former powerhouse, is flirting with recession, bogged down by high energy costs and a struggling manufacturing sector. Italy's debt-to-GDP ratio is still a terrifying 140%, but they've managed to navigate the post-COVID world with surprising resilience. The new ECB leadership will have to manage this new reality. Will a Dutch president like not sympathize with Germany's industrial woes? Or will a board with stronger southern representation push for policies that support growth, even at the risk of slightly higher inflation? The answer will directly impact the cost of borrowing for governments and businesses across the continent. It's the difference between a safety net and a tightrope. 2. The hawk versus dove cage match over your savings. This is the eternal battle. Hawks want to hike interest rates to crush inflation, protecting the value of savings. Think of your German pensioner. Doves want to keep rates lower to spur job growth and economic activity, even if it means inflation runs a bit hot. Think of your young Spanish entrepreneur looking for a loan. The data makes this fight particularly brutal right now. Headline inflation in the Eurozone has fallen from its 10.6% peak in 2022, but core inflation remains stubbornly sticky, hovering just above the ECB's 2% target. At the same time, economic growth is fragile. The new ECB chief will be walking a razor's edge. Hike too aggressively, and you trigger a recession. Stay too dovish, and you let the inflation genie out of the bottle for good, eroding everyone's purchasing power. The choice of president, a hawk like not or a potentially more dovish southerner, is the single biggest variable in this equation. 3. The geopolitical gauntlet, beyond interest rates. The job of a central banker used to be boring. You'd look at inflation and unemployment and set a rate. Now, the ECB president has to be a geopolitical grandmaster. The ECB is desperately trying to roll out a digital euro. This isn't a vanity project. It's a direct response to China's digital yuan and the rise of private stablecoins from a US-dominated tech sector. The new leadership will have to navigate a minefield of privacy concerns, cybersecurity threats, and the existential risk that a digital euro could pose to commercial banks. This is a battle for the future of money itself, and Europe is currently behind. The war in Ukraine, the tech Cold War between the US and China, the specter of deglobalization, these aren't abstract concepts. They have a direct impact on European supply chains, energy prices, and inflation. The new ECB must craft monetary policy for an era of permanent uncertainty. They are also a key player in enforcing financial sanctions, a role that thrusts the supposedly independent central bank squarely into the political arena. Purchases. But this is a hornet's nest. Is it the ECB's job to save the planet? And could the massive investment required for the green transition actually lead to a new wave of inflation, so-called greenflation? The next president will have to define the boundaries of central banking in the 21st century. So, as the finance ministers of Europe gather in their plush Luxembourg meeting rooms, remember what they're really carving up. It's not just jobs and titles. It's the future direction of an entire continent's economy. The outcome of this grand, political game of Eurothrones will determine the interest rate on your future mortgage. It will influence the value of your pension fund. It will dictate the health of the company you work for and the price of the coffee you buy tomorrow morning. The faces will change, but the challenges are immense. A fragile economy, stubborn inflation, a raging war on its border, and an existential race for technological sovereignty. The next president of the ECB won't just be an economist, they'll need to be a diplomat, a strategist, and maybe even a magician. So keep an eye on Frankfurt. The backroom deals and political maneuvering of the next 2 years will be more telling than any inflation forecast. Because while they're playing for the throne, it's our money, our jobs, and our future that are the real prizes. Stay cynical, folks. And stay informed.